The first thing that you have to understand about mind control is that everybody on a certain level is already under mind control. Now, the second thing you have to understand, and this is a lot darker, is that a lot of people want to be mind controlled. Now, I'm gonna say something that a lot of people will probably find controversial, but if you wanna become highly successful in life, you have to learn how to manipulate people. Now, the problem is most people automatically assume that manipulation is a bad thing or it's an evil thing. But if you actually look up the definition of the word manipulation, it simply just means to handle or control in a skillful manner. Okay, so let's say for an example, I have a friend that has low self-esteem, they don't believe in themselves, they're not confident. My job as a friend, I need to manipulate this nigga into understanding that he's a god, to understand that he has the power to create and change his own reality. So there's a such thing as positive manipulation as well as negative manipulation. So mind control doesn't always have to be bad. And essentially what we're talking about is the power of hypnosis. Being able to speak and tap into that part of your mind, the subconscious mind, which really governs and controls our reality. Now, let's get into some techniques, okay? Before you can mind control and hypnotize somebody else, you have to first be able to do it to yourself. If you can't convince yourself, how can you convince somebody else? Now, there's something called NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming. And this is basically the art and the science of using words, using tones, using body language to influence people on a subconscious level. So you have to learn how to not just speak to people, but speak through people. For example, I know how to project my words and my thoughts and energy, not just from my mouth, but from my heart chakra into somebody else's heart chakra. Now, this is advanced high-level occult magic, which takes years of practice of meditation and discipline, but anybody can learn these techniques if they put in the work and the time, okay? If you study pastors, if you look at any good public speaker, if you look at people that are amazing artists, they understand how to affect people on an emotional level because the emotions is actually stronger than logic. If you can tap into somebody's emotions and how they feel, what you say really doesn't even matter. And this is why I tell people a lot of times, especially when it comes to content, public speaking, it's not even what you say, it's how you say it. There's something within NLP called hypnotic language patterns. And this is basically how you can use certain words, certain phrases, even the pace and the speed at which you deliver your words and your messages. All of this can have a profound effect on the person that's listening to you. Now, the first step to really affecting the subconscious is that you have to establish rapport, which means you have to make the person comfortable enough with you to be able to open up to you on a subconscious level. So if you ever do a hypnotic session, a hypnotherapy session, the first thing they have to get you to do is to relax. Because naturally, a lot of people will have their guard up, and it's going to be hard for you to penetrate the subconscious if they have their guard up. So the first thing is you have to establish a certain level of rapport to be able to make them comfortable with you. Now, there's a few ways that you can do this. Now, one good way is to use something called presupposition. Now, this means that you use information that you know the person already agrees with to get them into a more agreeable state. Now, understand, before I go any further, like I said, you don't want to use this information to just manipulate people in a negative way, because a lot of times it can have negative consequences based upon, we're not talking about just lying to people and just telling people things just for your own selfish reason. But presupposition, this is where you would find a common ground. So you would find something that people already know is true. So a lot of times in hypnotherapy, they'll start off by asking you questions like, okay, what is your name? What do you do? Is this such and such true? Like, how old are you? They'll ask you all of these questions to get you into a more agreeable state so that your subconscious can start to open up. Now, there's also another concept called embedded commands. See, when you talk to people, you want to suggest and not just talk to them. So you want to steer the conversation towards the way that you want to go, but you have to do it in a subtle way to where they don't realize that you're leading them to that space, right? Or to that destination. So another technique is to use open-ended questions. So this is when you ask somebody a question that can't be answered with just a yes or no answer. So you force them to respond in a more detailed way, because the more that they interact with you, the more of a rapport that you'll build over time. Now, another powerful technique is that you have to learn how to engage other people's imagination. If you can get somebody to visualize and see what you're saying, that is a lot more powerful than them just hearing you. When you talk to somebody, you have to learn how to trigger all of the emotional states and all of the senses, not just hearing. If people are only hearing you and listening to you, that's not a very powerful or effective way to communicate. You need them to visualize and see what you're saying. And you do this by using descriptive words that force them to be able to use their imagination. All of this is an art and a science, okay? And it takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of studying. But once you master these techniques, you will become a god of communication to where people won't even know why, but they'll just want to be around you. Another thing is that you want to associate yourself with positive emotions. So you do this by, like I was saying, by triggering and activating the imagination and by using certain trigger words. There are certain words that just tap into the subconscious automatically. If you listen to somebody like Trump, right, he uses certain words a lot, like freedom, justice. You know, a lot of politicians use these buzzwords that really don't mean anything on their own, but within the context and the framework of whatever their agenda is, it speaks to people on a deep, deep level. So people want to hear that whatever you're doing can bring them more freedom. That's an emotional trigger word that makes people more attracted to you. So you have to learn how to use your words in a strategic manner. And when you can really master these practices, bro, I'm telling you, there is nothing that you can't convince somebody to be able to do. Now, there's a lot of other factors that go into this, like, you know, your appearance, the way that you carry yourself, your reputation. There's a lot of other factors, which I'll get into in future videos. But start off by just learning how to speak in a way that's more influential and that suggests and makes people want to believe what you're saying. Like I said, if you don't believe in what you're saying, if you can't convince yourself, you'll never be able to convince anybody else. So thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful or useful anyway, please like, comment,